Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you this morning to the Fire and Police Joint Conference this morning. I want to thank you for coming. I want to recognize particularly this morning that we have with us Police Chief Halstead with Fire Chief Rudy Jackson. In addition, we have Senator Davis with us this morning, Mayor Price. We also have Dr. McDermott, the Executive Director of MHMR. They all will be making brief statements this morning. I will begin this morning by giving an initial statement, and I will be followed by Chief Halstead, who will give an additional statement at that time. As you're aware, on Tuesday, March 20th, 2012, at 16:03 hours, the Fort Worth Fire Department Alarm Office received an automatic alarm from an office building located at 2421 West 7th Street. Subsequent to the alarm, calls were received from occupants in the building confirming a fire in the hallway on the 3rd floor. As a result, the alarm office upgraded the automatic alarm dispatch to a 1-alarm assignment on a structure fire. Fort Worth Fire Department Engine 2 was the first company to arrive on the scene. Upon their initial investigation, it was determined that the fire was located in the hallway in front of the door of State Senator Wendy Davis's office. It was further determined that it had been extinguished by one of the 2 staffers who were in the office at the time of the fire. Both staffers were able to exit the office without injury. After making the determination the fire was out, Engine 2 turned back the remaining 1-alarm assignment and requested an investigator from the department's arson bomb squad. Due to the fact that this incident involved Senator Davis's office, members of the bomb squad responded to both the incident scene as well as performing a sweep on Senator Davis's vehicle. This was purely as a precaution. The investigator at the incident site processed the scene, and noted that evidence indicated that an incendiary device had been used to start the fire. Investigators are presently waiting on lab results prior to making a final determination. Witnesses on the scene informed investigators and Fort Worth police officers that a maintenance worker had followed an unknown individual out of the building following the fire. And for an update regarding the ensuing events, I'm going to turn the podium over to Chief Halstead. Excuse me, we're going to hear from Chief Jackson first.
Good morning. I'm going to speak briefly. I just wanted to speak to the cooperation between the police department and the fire department on investigations like this. We have worked together very well over the years, and we are doing so what we have done so today in this case. Upon fire department's initial arrival on the scene, we took charge, and up until a certain point, it was our investigation, our situation, and then we turned it over to PD. Again, it's just an example of how here in the Fort Worth we work together and make sure that citizens are safe when we are involved in any kind of incident such as this. The details for the fire department side of this incident has already been given to you. Chief Holstaff is going to come up and talk to you about the details on the police side.
Good morning, and thank you so much for coming. I just want to cover some areas very briefly, and I'm going to read this verbatim because some of these facts are extremely specific. I want to make sure I get those accurate to assist you with your stories. Upon the arrival of our police officers in coordination with the Fort Worth Fire Department, it became apparent that the fire was set intentionally through the use of bottles filled with an accelerant believed to be lighter fluid. No injuries occurred, and no injuries were reported, and we really appreciate the quick actions on behalf of the staff. Based on witness statements, descriptions, and evidence obtained, investigators turned their attention to an individual known as Cedric Steele. He is known to frequent the area and who subsequently visited Senator Davis's office on Friday, March 16th and on Monday, March 19th, requesting to speak with the senator, who was unavailable on both occasions. Mr. Steele made unusual statements to office staff stating that they would soon read about him in the news. At approximately 11 p.m. last night, while searching the Camp Bowie area, patrol officers observed Mr. Steele in a convenience store parking lot in the 6000 block of Camp Bowie. Officers detained Steele. I'm going to read that again. I almost lost a microphone there. I think it's saying. Officers detained Steele where he was questioned by Fort Worth Intelligence Section investigators. There's no way we would have been successful without quick action and the sharing of information from the fire department to our police employees on scene. I want to give credit specifically for those police employees. First of all, Major Paul Henderson left an event last night and went over in person to visit with the senator as well as other staff and coordinated some security throughout the night, which assisted in leading a team effort to find Mr. Steele. I'd like to extend an extreme appreciation for Lieutenant Todd Wadlington, who led this investigative and search effort, Sergeant Burns, Officer Navarro, who believed he knew this person that frequented the area, Officer Housey, and Corporal Shoshid. Investigators were able to determine that Steele had been sleeping in a vacant residence located in the 5600 block of Donnelly. A search of the vacant building resulted in the recovery of empty bottles, items used such as wicks, and an empty can of lighter fluid. An arrest warrant was obtained for Cedric Steele on the charge of arson of a building, which is a felony, Class 2 felony, and Mr. Steele was subsequently booked into the jail with a $50,000 bond. This morning, after reading these events and understanding some of the national trends that occur in other related incidents, we made it very clear to all of our neighborhood police officers and our patrol officers this morning, we want them to extend a contact to any and all other elected officials in Fort Worth, and we want them to greet them, update them on this case, but also to make that communication effort to them, that if there is any other incidents, any other areas of security or concern for our city, we want to be the first to be notified, and we'll have the right staff deployed to ensure their safety. At this time, I would like to introduce our mayor, Mayor Betsy Price.
Good morning. I'm just going to be brief, but I wanted to take a minute and say that Wendy, Senator Davis, and her staff are in our thoughts, and we're glad that the suspect has been picked up so that all the citizens of Fort Worth feel safe. Our police department and our fire department are excellent at what they do, well-trained, caring. They're out there for all of us. Those of us who serve in the public eye must continue to do that, and we're very fortunate, as well as all our citizens, to have the backing of an excellent police department and an excellent fire department. These guys receive and girls great training, and they're responsive, they're caring, and they do a wonderful job for the citizens of Fort Worth. And again, we just want to thank them, and I want the citizens of Fort Worth to feel that they are well protected. We're here to serve. So thank you for what you do, Chief Jackson, Chief Halstead. Senator Davis is with us this morning and is going to speak just a minute about the situation and the response. Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say, of course, a very special thank you this morning to the quick action, the intelligent and thoughtful response from the Fort Worth Police Department and the Fort Worth Fire Department. Working together, they did something quite remarkable. Less than 24 hours after this incident occurred, they have a custody and suspect who they have very good reason to believe was the person responsible for what happened in our Senate office late yesterday afternoon. It's important as things like this occur that we remember there are people with lives and families who are at risk. Our staff who was in the office yesterday acted quickly and responsibly in a way that prevented actual harm from occurring. But we could be standing here today telling a very different story had they not reacted as well as they did. It's a reminder for all of us that people who are working on behalf of constituents, whether they be in state legislative offices or city offices or county offices, are particularly vulnerable. And we need to be very careful about the type of rhetoric that is bantered about as part of political campaigns and political dynamics, because behind that rhetoric are vulnerable people who are doing good work on behalf of the citizens of this community who are being placed at risk. It's especially incumbent upon us when things like this happen to remember that our words have meaning, that when we demonize people who are in political roles and we invite responses that are unreasonable, that these are the kinds of things that can occur and that we are putting people at risk by doing that. I would ask at this time for us all just to remember, as we continue in this political campaign and the political climate that will exist over the ensuing months, to remember to talk about issues and not people, and to stay on the side of talking about things that matter to our community rather than to demonize individuals in a way that may invite these kind of responses, particularly from people who may have mental instabilities in our community. Again, thank you so much to the quick actions of our police and fire department. I also want to say a special thank you to the Department of Public Safety. I felt very safe last night because of their oversight in all regards for me and my staff, and they've done superior work and have demonstrated once again why we call them Fort Worth's finest. Thank you.
My comments will be brief. I do not know anything about the suspect, and I'm making an assumption, but that he probably has some emotional issues that he's dealing with. I probably would be during a political campaign and during a time of election years. There's no doubt that a lot of things are said, and some really reach out to all of us and our emotions, and our reactions are emotional. But most of us can deal with those. We may feel anger, we may feel sadness, but folks with severe mental illness and emotional problems, when the rhetoric that often is that comes out in a political campaign, some of those folks take that differently and can handle it differently than you and I might be able to. So I really want to echo the Senator's comments about the importance of our political campaigns deal with facts, less so with emotional kinds of arguments, because there's a lot of folks out there that interpret them wrongly and react to them in a way, unfortunately, like happened yesterday, and then we've seen it in other parts of the country. So let's try to stick to the facts as best we can, and deal with and recognize that the folks out there with emotional problems may interpret these things in a way that lead to consequences like we saw yesterday. So thank you.
Can we ask who you are? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Jim McDermott. I'm the CEO of MHMR Turner County.
Good morning. I'm Major Paul Henderson. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Fort Worth Police Department. Before we get started with some questions and answers, I'd like to do some housekeeping. We're going to be issuing press packets immediately following. And keep in mind, during the question session, this is a very early, ongoing investigation. And it's criminal, and there are some sensitive items that we're not really going to be able to discuss, but we'll do our very best. Thank you very much. We can open it up for questions.
Let me ask Senator Davis. We were talking about the political rhetoric. Was there a particular issue that Mr. Steele had come to your office regarding, and did he say something in particular about what he wanted to address?
I'm going to answer that by responding as the police department just recommended, which is in the process of the investigation. I think it's premature to answer things like that very specifically. Of course, we know there have been some issues of late that have been highlighted in the media and that I and my team have taken prominent positions on. And I think sometimes when you exercise a leadership role on issues such as the women's health care cuts, public education, the redistricting issues that we've been dealing with, sometimes those can create a dynamic that presents vulnerabilities for those who are taking those positions. I certainly hope that's not the case here, that there was a direct correlation between our positions on those issues and what happened in our office yesterday, but it certainly is a reminder to us that those possibilities exist. And as Dr. McDermott indicated, sometimes people who may or may not have the mental faculties that you or I have may respond to incendiary comments about issues in a way that's not as reasonable as we would hope.
Does it change at all the way you do business out of that office or your offices elsewhere?
Certainly, we are going to be looking at making sure that our staff, our team, is as safe as possible. We'll be relying on work from the Department of Public Safety to come in and assure us that we've got the right protocols in place.
Was there some type of rhetoric?
You can't say specifics, but can you say in general the last time you saw this man and what stood out to you that was not right?
My office met with him both on Friday of last week and Monday of this week, and just his demeanor and the demand in which he was expressing his desire to meet with me led them to believe that he was probably not completely stable.
Had they communicated with you about him prior to last night or yesterday?
Yes.
What had they said to you about their take on him?
I'll answer that question as I just answered that he appeared to be unstable.
Can you give us more specifics, though, about what he was saying, why he wanted to meet with you?
I really don't think that I should do that at this time. I would prefer to allow the police department to continue their investigation before we discuss any details like that.
Senator, how often does it happen that someone who your staff believes to be potentially unstable comes to visit you? I'd imagine a public official probably has more than one person who is apparently less than desirable knocking on their door or worse.
We most certainly do. I think that's probably a common occurrence in elected offices, whether they're at the local, the state, or the national level. We try to, of course, be very careful in responding to people who present themselves in that way to our offices, and never before have we believed that we were in physical in the threat of physical harm by a person who's visited our office, and I don't believe that our staff felt that that was the case with this particular person either.
Senator, do you believe that state cuts in services for people like this in distress are part of this at all? Do you lay any of this in any of the budget cuts or characterize the state role?
Well, most certainly. I mean, when people like this present themselves, and I think this person has had somewhat of a history in this community, and may or may not have had a history with MHMR. Dr. McDermott, I don't think, has had an opportunity to make that determination yet. But what we know from the budget cuts that occurred in this past legislative session, they hit particularly hard in two arenas, the arena of women's health care and the arena of mental health services. And if there's anything to be learned from this, as we learned, of course, in the Wedgwood shooting in our community years ago, the importance of our mental health community, our mental health services, cannot be understated. And these are very real issues that must be addressed and shouldn't be the first thing that the budgetary pen slashes when we go through difficult times, because there are consequences, not only to that person who needs assistance, but also to people who may be vulnerable as a consequence of a person who hasn't had the health services that they need.
What is known of this suspect's criminal and mental history?
I don't know anything about that.
Do you ever know the criminal background?
We're still wading through that information, Chuck. In your press packet, we'll provide you a copy with the arrest warrant and the arrest warrant affidavit that will have some of the details that you're looking for, such as what type of statements were made on the previous visits and some other information that will help us all try to comprehend and understand exactly what occurred.
Are police confident this man acted alone and that it was an isolated incident?
Right now, there's no information to indicate that there are any additional suspects.
Any kind of surveillance video at the property at all that shows either the incident or the suspect leaving?
Right. Just keep in mind this occurred yesterday afternoon, and then we located the suspect at about 11 p.m. And so part of the ongoing investigation will be looking for surveillance cameras throughout the neighborhood, and if we certainly have that, and we'll retrieve it and we'll use that. So that'll be a part of the ongoing process.
Would someone from the fire department be able to answer a question about, you know, this fire was apparently easily extinguished by an extinguisher, and maybe the first firefighters arrived. How close could this have been to getting out of hand?
I believe I think it wouldn't have got out of hand unless he maybe had set fires on multiple floors or something like that. The fire department was within 5 minutes of arriving. I believe the building has sprinkler systems. We were there just about the time when the individual probably left. So we have very capable personnel to handle situations like this. It was a very small fire when we got there. So.
How would you describe the devices? First of all, how would you describe it, and had you ever seen anything like that before in any other investigation?
Well, at this point, the devices have been sent, are going to be sent to a lab. They're incendiary devices. We see a lot of different devices all the time. So have we seen something like that before? Probably so. Can't describe what it is now. You know, it burned, and it's still under investigation, but it's not atypical.
The only charge against this man now, if I understood that correctly, is arson?
Yes, it's arson of a building, and because there are people inside of the building, it elevates that as an enhanced penalty, and that's in your press packet as far as the warrant. You'll have the specific charge.
Is it your belief at this point that would be the only charge? I mean, I'm not asking you to predict the future here, but...
Well, in cases like this, we always reach out to our federal partners as well. We've been in contact with the ATF. They'll be reviewing this case to make any determination if this is something that would rise to their level. Again, we're talking about an individual that we believe acted alone, that we believe has some instability. And so really, how far do you want to take a case like this when, I mean, he's apprehended, he is under investigation, and it'll really be up to the federal government and the ATF as far as they want to pursue any additional charges. And I'm not sure about the Texas Department of Public Safety. They may have an interest in this as well.
Could there be a charge, maybe the question should go to Senator Davis, since she's an attorney. Is there an enhanced charge if the target is a public official?
A question for the senator. Can you talk to us about how this has affected you personally? Obviously, you know, you're projecting a strong image, and you know a lot of people are concerned about you. But how much has this rattled you, and does it change the way that you do your business as a representative of other people?
Well, it's certainly unsettling, and I have to admit to you, between the time that the incident happened yesterday afternoon and this morning, it has settled in even further for me, and I know it has for my staff as well. My number one concern is that we have a staff office which of course has an open door policy. We are open to do business for the public. That's what we are in office to do, and we will continue to do that. But it highlights for me how vulnerable the people on my team are. Will I change the way I represent my community? Absolutely not. I think that we've been a very important voice on issues that our community cares very, very deeply about. And it's important that we continue to be the voice on public education, on job creation, on women's health issues in the legislative dialogue. And we have every intention of continuing to speak in the way that we have been speaking on those issues.
Senator, what kind of rhetoric is incendiary that makes you cringe, that you wish this would stop or become more civil?
You know, I'll leave that for you to make your own determination. But certainly there have been some reports of candidate forums where particular vitriolic statements have been directed at me. And as Dr. McDermott said, you know, I understand that in politics, the old saying goes, all's fair in love and war in politics. But we have to be particularly careful to keep our conversations about the issues that we are asking people to elect us to serve them on, and to stay away from demonizing individuals in a way that might incite these kinds of responses.
Senator, is there any indication at all that he had some sort of political motive, or was, is there anything to indicate that this rhetoric had affected him somehow?
I don't have any indication about that at this time, and that will be part of the investigation that the police department will conduct.
We're going to need to cut it off at this point if we can. If we do appreciate your coming. Please get a packet. They've all been provided as stated before, and thank you for coming.